Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about tax advantaged retirement accounts. This is for those of us who haven't really invested for retirement or really thought about it or never really had access to those accounts before. Overall though, there's almost no reason to not start investing in these accounts, especially if you have money left over. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's a different situation altogether. There's going to be a lot of tax advantaged accounts for retirement. I'm not going to go over everything. I'm going to go over the ones that I have experience with. If you don't see an account that you have discussed today, don't worry about it. You can check it out on irs.gov. They should have every single account listed out along with restrictions associated with them and just benefits in general associated with them. So it's important to really understand before you start investing in it. I know everyone says, hey, invest in your 401k. Nothing can go wrong in there, which is true to a certain extent when you're thinking about retirement. But you really want to understand what you're doing before you just start funneling money into these accounts. It doesn't hurt to have it, but you really want to understand the limitations of those accounts as well. If you went ahead and read irs.gov, still confusing, you watch this video, still confusing, no idea what's happening, that's fine, right? Not all of us are inclined to do more research and spend their weekends digging into these financial accounts and retirement accounts. If that's the case, really consider finding a financial advisor, preferably someone that's charges hourly and is fiduciary, right? Make sure you can find both of those, and you should be set. That can walk you through what kind of accounts are available, help you set up certain transactions between those accounts on a monthly basis, so you are saving. But aside from that, do your research and find help if you need it. The first account I'm gonna go over is the 401k. The max contribution for a 401k is $20,500 this year. If you happen to be 50 or older, then it can go up to $27,000 per year. Now, these numbers do change from year to year, so be sure to check out irs.gov and see how it does change over time. Generally speaking, it tries to line up with inflation, with just increased living costs, and they allow you to save more. Now, do folks actually save up to $20,500 every year? Probably not. And if you do, good for you. Now, the reason why the 401k is so popular, especially after you graduate college, pretty much everyone is telling you put money into a 401k. It's because most of the time, or a good chunk of the time at least, companies do offer a match. And what that means is that if you put money into the 401k, they'll put some money into the 401k for you. So essentially, it's free money. That 401k match is part of your total compensation, so you should take advantage of it. If you don't put money toward your 401k and you miss out on the match, you're only hurting yourself. Sometimes free money is too good to be true. That can be true, right? Sometimes companies do have vesting schedules to make sure that you stay at the company. For example, if you put $500 toward your 401k and they said they would match up to $500, they might say, hey, we're going to match your $500 over a 4-year period and we're going to match 25% each year. You would get 25% of your $500 in your first year, 25% in the second year, and 25% in the third year. If you leave in the third year, you're not going to get the remaining 25% in the fourth year. Right, so that's how they try to incentivize you to stay. The best 401k matches are going to be the ones with no vesting schedules. That means you get your money right away after you get your paycheck. It just matches right away. One thing to consider for a 401k is usually you do not get to choose the provider. Right? So if your company said we're going to work with Fidelity, you're going to work with Fidelity. If your company says we're going to work with Vanguard, then you're going to work with Vanguard. Right? So that's sort of a limitation. And further than that, we think about the fact that you don't truly get to choose your own investments. Sure, you have 27 or 30 investments to choose from. That's like a high number, right? Sometimes you have less. It's completely possible that all 30 investment options are just terrible, right? Or however many is in your accounts. It could just be terrible. But most of the time, the tax benefits of putting money into a 401k outweigh the terrible investments, but you really have to take a look at it and really think about where those investments are. The biggest benefit from a 401k is going to be the tax benefit. We pay taxes. You have to pay taxes. You're legally required to. It's not fun paying taxes. You definitely don't want to pay taxes when you're saving for your retirement. So 401ks do help with that. It's not that you pay no taxes, but you pay less taxes, which is very important here. And depending on the type of account that you choose, it changes when you get taxed. Right? So there's the idea of a traditional 401k, which most people just say is a 401k. In that case, you get taxed later on. Right? So you'll get taxed less today, and you defer those taxes until you withdraw in retirement. Then there's the idea of Roth 401ks, which are taxed up front so that you can withdraw much later on in retirement tax-free. Right? So your contributions will grow tax-free in a sense. But that's the gist of Roth and traditional. I won't get into which one's better. It depends on your situation. So many factors are at play here. Now, last thing I want to talk about at 401k is that there is going to be an early withdrawal penalty, like many of these accounts, right? The government created these retirement accounts for retirement, right? It's not for you to take advantage of it while you're still working, right? The goal is to make sure that you take that money in retirement. If you do happen to withdraw your 401k early, then you'll pay a 10% penalty. Right now, the limit is 59.5. The government can choose to change this limit at any point, but if you withdraw money before 59.5, you're going to have to pay a 10% penalty on what you withdraw. Now, there are ways to get around this. You can just go through the Roth ladder, right? That's one approach to getting around it. You can read up more about it on the site, which I will put in the description below. Which brings me to my next topic of Roth IRAs. Now, Roth IRAs are interesting because the limit is much lower than $20,500. The limit is actually $6,000. If you do happen to be 50 and older, the limit is $7,000 per year. Right? So if you think about it, even if you're not 50 and older, you would be saving $26,500 per year toward retirement if you were to max out both your 401k and your IRA. Now, is everyone going to do that? Probably not, but it's good to have options. The biggest difference between a 401k and an IRA is that a 401k is usually with your employer, while an IRA is something that you have yourself, right? In a sense that you don't have to adhere to restrictions from your employer. You don't have to go with the provider that the employer picks. You can choose whatever provider you want. And the IRA usually is for folks who don't have access to a 401k, right? Not every company offers a 401k. If you happen to be with a company that does not offer a 401k, ask yourself why, because that's a compensation package that I believe everyone should get. Everyone deserves to retire, right? But if that's the case, then you have the option of putting money toward an IRA. And an IRA is pretty self-driven. You can just Google IRA and you'll pop up with a bunch of sites for exactly what you're looking for and what accounts you can open. Personally, I have a Roth IRA, but there's the same idea between Roth and traditional here, right? Traditional, you'll get taxed later. Roth, you'll get taxed now. Just remember that there are still limitations for the advantages associated with this account, right? So if you find that you are hitting the income limit for a Roth IRA, that income limit will change and get updated every year. So be sure to check that before you start putting money toward an IRA, especially if you get a promotion or something happens in between the year where your income skyrockets. If you are in that situation, consider a backdoor Roth IRA. Sounds kind of sketchy because it says backdoor, but it's legitimate, right? There's even a step-by-step guide for it. People have been doing it for years. Anyone can use it, right? Most of the time it's for high-income folks because they are above the threshold, but technically today you can use it yourself, regardless if you're above or below the threshold. There will just be no benefit except extra paperwork. But that's something to consider, right? Something really to think about when it comes to an IRA, especially if you don't have access to a 401k. And now you might be thinking, all right, a 401k, I can put in $20,500 and I can only put in $6,000 into an IRA. That's a huge difference. Is it really worth it? Well, think about it like this. If you were to invest $6,000 every year for 30 years consistently, you would still end up with $500,000. You would really be setting yourself up for success if you just put in $6,000 for 30 years. Or you still end up with $500,000, and $500,000 is no joke. Of course, there are always exceptions to early withdrawals. Same thing for 401ks. There are qualified distributions, and you can learn more about it on the IRS website. You don't want to rely on these exceptions because if you think about it, these accounts are for retirement. If you're taking out earlier than retirement, you must have a pretty good reason because most of us have to retire, right? You're stealing from your future self in a sense. Now, those are the two huge accounts that I have. Of course, you can have other accounts like 403Bs, which is similar to a 401k. And then you can also have HSAs. There's a whole bunch of other retirement-related accounts that you can have. There's different types of IRAs beyond a Roth and traditional. But I really want you to focus on, these accounts are what most folks have. And if you don't have one of these accounts, I suggest you really think about starting one of these accounts because retirement, you have to save for retirement. You can't just avoid it forever. And a lot of folks are worried about, hey, I can't get my money out. You can. Just make sure to read the fine print, understand how long the money is locked up for and how you want to get it out. There's different ways you can get the money out. Money is not trapped in your 401k forever. Hopefully that broke down some of those accounts, and I encourage you to start looking into one of those accounts. Otherwise, happy investing and happy savings for retirement.